The war ended in 1945, but one man didn't believe it. He lived alone in the jungle for almost 30 years. This Japanese soldier refused to leave his post even after the war had ended. His name was Hiroo. He was a master of disguise who spoke several languages, and during the Second World War, he was trained by Japanese intelligence to be a guerrilla behind enemy lines. So when Japan invaded the island of Lubang in the Philippines in 19, he was sent there as part of an elite unit. His mission was to conduct sabotage and intelligence operations against the Americans until either he was killed or captured. And before leaving Japan, he received orders from his superiors that under no circumstances were they to surrender and never trust the enemy. And so when Japan surrendered in 1945, Onoda and the other soldiers on the island thought it was just Allied propaganda. They had no way of knowing whether or not it was true. When his unit finally met up with some locals who informed them the war was over, they still didn't believe them. So, they decided to lay low and wait until things settled down. And when attempts were made to inform Onoda that the war was over, he simply ignored them. He continued to live in the jungle, hunting and stealing food from local farms to survive. He also avoided capture by staying hidden and moving around only at night. Throughout this time, he maintained his military bearing and discipline, always being ready to fight the enemy, even though there wasn't one. He believed he was still serving his country, and that one day the Japanese army would come back and reclaim the island. Onoda wasn't alone for the first few years. He had several other Japanese soldiers with him, as well as some Filipino guerrillas who aided them. However, one of the soldiers eventually surrendered, while the others died in firefights with both the Japanese and American forces. By the early 1970s, Onoda was completely alone, having survived for nearly 30 years in the jungle. But it seemed like his luck had finally run out, because in 1974, he was discovered by a Japanese traveler named Norio Suzuki. Onoda was reluctant to come out of the jungle, but eventually agreed to meet with Suzuki. When they met, Onoda refused to surrender without official orders from his superiors. Suzuki tried to convince him that the war was over and that he was no longer a soldier, but Onoda refused to listen. He said that he was still awaiting command from his superior officer, one Lieutenant Yoshimi, and so Suzuki decided to help Onoda by trying to locate his old commander. After searching for 2 years, Suzuki finally found Tonoguchi, living as a civilian in Japan. And with the help of the Japanese government, the old lieutenant flew to the Philippines in March 1974 to give Onoda the surrender order. Finally, after nearly 30 years, Onoda surrendered. He handed over his rifle to his old commander, which was still fully operational. Onoda then returned to Japan, where he was greeted by a media frenzy. He was interviewed by dozens of reporters and thousands of people came to see the soldier who had refused to give up. However, he struggled to adapt to modern life, and after a few months moved to Brazil, where he started a farm. He later returned to Japan, where he gave lectures about Bushido, the way of the samurai, and the importance of discipline and perseverance. He died in 2014 at the age of 91. And although he was once known as the last samurai, he was simply remembered by his family as a loving husband and father. Now check out the Japanese soldier who was frozen in ice for 30 years. Or have a look at what happened to the last Japanese soldier.